Dear you, I'm writing to you from a version of yourself who remembers the quiet, unsettling fear of feeling like you were slowly turning into someone you didn't quite recognize. It wasn't dramatic, and it didn't happen overnight. It was subtle, so subtle that at first, you didn't even notice. Small changes in how you reacted, small shifts in how you spoke, small behaviors you didn't understand. But over time, those small things built into a quiet worry inside your chest, a feeling that whispered, "I don't know if this is me anymore." You didn't tell anyone. How could you? How do you explain that nothing is wrong, yet something feels deeply off inside? How do you explain that you smile, laugh, and show up the same way as always, yet inside you feel like a stranger slowly taking your place? I remember how lonely that confusion felt. You weren't necessarily sad. You weren't necessarily lost. You were simply disconnected from yourself, as if the person living your life wasn't fully you. You noticed yourself making choices that didn't match your heart. You noticed yourself speaking words that didn't feel like they belonged to your real voice. You noticed yourself reacting out of fear, tiredness, or habit, rather than intention. Sometimes you felt numb. Sometimes you felt muted. Sometimes you felt like you were watching yourself from a distance, as if your emotions and actions didn't line up anymore. You looked in the mirror and saw someone familiar but not entirely known. You wondered if you were changing in the wrong direction. You wondered if life was shaping you into someone colder, quieter, more withdrawn, more guarded than you ever intended to be. You wondered if you were losing the softness you once cherished, or the optimism you once carried naturally. And what hurt most wasn't the change itself. It was not knowing whether the change was growth or damage. You didn't know if you were evolving or disappearing. You didn't know if the shifts inside you were a sign of becoming stronger or a sign of becoming someone you didn't want to be. But I saw you. I saw the way you tried to hold on to the parts of yourself you loved even when the world felt heavy. I saw the way you longed to reconnect with your true voice. I saw the way you worried quietly while still trying to move forward. And none of it made you weak. It made you human, trying to navigate a transformation you didn't yet understand. Your past self understands now that what you went through wasn't you becoming someone unrecognizable. It was you shedding parts of yourself that no longer fit. The discomfort wasn't your identity disappearing. It was your identity rearranging itself, trying to become more aligned with truth, not habit. Change often feels like loss before it feels like growth. Transformation often feels like disorientation before it feels like clarity. Becoming more yourself often feels like becoming less for a while, because everything false must fall away first. You weren't becoming someone worse. You were outgrowing the version of yourself who lived for pleasing others. You were shedding the self who minimized their feelings. You were releasing the version who said yes automatically, who softened themselves to avoid conflict, who shaped their identity around expectations rather than authenticity. Of course, that felt unfamiliar. Of course, that felt scary. Of course, it felt like losing yourself. because you had never truly allowed yourself to be yourself before. Your past self sees now that the fear you felt came from the tension between who you thought you were supposed to be and who you were actually becoming. You weren't losing warmth. You were learning boundaries. You weren't losing softness. You were learning discernment. You weren't becoming cold. You were becoming more honest. And the numbness you felt, it wasn't emptiness. It was your heart entering a protective pause, a space where it could finally rest after carrying years of unspoken feelings. When your inner world is reorganizing itself, emotions often go quiet, not because you're losing them, but because you're integrating them. You also feared your reactions changing. You noticed you no longer tolerated what you once tolerated. You no longer accepted what you once let slide. You no longer hid your disappointment or swallowed your truth. That wasn't you changing for the worse. That was healing. That was strength rising where suppression once lived. Your past self wants you to know this clearly. You didn't lose yourself. You were removing what wasn't you. You didn't become unrecognizable. You were meeting parts of yourself you hadn't known yet. The transformation was uncomfortable because you were stepping out of a version of yourself shaped by survival and stepping into a version shaped by self-respect, awareness, and truth. And anything that asks you to evolve will always feel like a loss at first. Now I'm speaking to the you reading this. The you who may still feel unsure of who you're becoming. The you who still worries if change means losing the best parts of yourself. The you who fears drifting too far from the person you once were. Take a slow, gentle breath. Feel your chest rise. Let this truth settle softly inside you. You are not becoming someone unrecognizable. You are becoming someone more honest, more aware, more aligned, more whole. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to outgrow old versions of yourself. You are allowed to change your priorities, your boundaries, your beliefs. You are allowed to step away from identities shaped by fear and move toward identities shaped by your heart. And here's the most important part. The parts of you that matter, your kindness, your depth, your sensitivity, your capacity for love, are not disappearing. They are deepening. They are maturing. They are reshaping themselves in ways that protect you instead of draining you. Your becoming is not something to fear. It is something to trust. You are learning to hear your own voice. You are learning to honor your needs. You are learning to choose yourself without guilt. You are learning to grow without abandoning your core. This is not a loss. This is a homecoming. The day will come when you look back and say, I thought I was losing myself, but I was finally finding myself. Your future self will feel familiar you, but clearer. You, but stronger. You, but stronger. You, but softer in the right places and firmer in the places that protect your heart. You won't feel like a stranger forever. One morning, you will wake up and recognize the person in the mirror again. Not as who you used to be, but as who you were always meant to become. Take one more slow breath. Let it ground you. Let it comfort you. You are not disappearing. You are unfolding. You are not breaking. You are rebuilding. You are not becoming less. You are becoming real. Sincerely, you